My son, Paul House, is on death row. He's been on death row for 22 years.
Paul House is on death row, even though the U.S. Supreme Court said almost 2 years ago that no reasonable juror would have lacked doubt at this point that he was innocent with DNA evidence.
So this was something that, I have always, just kept it in because that was his request. And then finally I said, I can't do this anymore. It's just tearing me, tearing me up. By being with TCAST, they taught me how to speak out.
I am the Executive Director for the Tennessee Coalition to Abolish State Killing. It is our mission to honor life by abolishing the death penalty in Tennessee. We do that through grassroots organizing, through education, through advocacy, through public witnesses against executions, and to try to empower citizens to let their voices be heard in changing this public policy in Tennessee.
I think that one of the biggest problems with the death penalty is misconceptions and miseducation, and we seek to educate people on this policy.
You might support the death penalty or think it's a good thing philosophically or morally, but we can't afford it. We don't need it, and it's clear that innocent people get caught up in the system, and we can't support a system that potentially executes innocent people.
I looked at what I could do, and I knew that I could speak out against the death penalty. My mother was murdered when I was 12 years old, and I've always been against the death penalty. I work with TCAST because my mother was murdered. I work to abolish the death penalty because my mother was murdered.
My 12-year-old daughter's life was taken through young men who were going out to, they say, start a game. And they were going out to peel some white folk and get their names on the map. And they were aiming at a white lady, and as she saw a scratch on her car, and when she saw the scratch, she bent down to look at it, and the bullet went over her head and shot my baby daughter right here in her neck, and it killed her instantly.
Mostly, I think about that the death penalty in my mother's case would have done nothing to honor her life. I would hate to bring that kind of tragedy onto somebody else's family, and the death penalty does exactly that.
The word says that not to do evil for evil, but to overcome evil with good, and I just grabbed that. And if it was wrong for them to take my daughter's life, why is it right for the state to take a person's life? Wrong is wrong to me.
Most people would agree if you're going to have a death penalty that it should be fair, that committing a crime in Shelby County and committing the same crime in Davidson County should get the same penalty. But that's not happening. 40% of the people on death row come from Shelby County, from one single county. There are some counties in Tennessee who have never given out a death sentence. And so, as you look across the state of Tennessee and say, well, this should be administered fairly, where's the fairness? We think we should have a system that's colorblind, and yet we have a number of black defendants on death row tried and sentenced by all-white juries. And you want to start talking about money, there's not a single person in the state of Tennessee who could afford their own defense in their initial trial for a death penalty case. So that means that we, the taxpayers, regardless of whether you think this is a good system or not, we, the taxpayers, pay for the prosecution and the defense in the initial trial, which is much more expensive in a death penalty case, and all the mandatory appeals. it's a screwed up system that ends up, bankrupting our justice system, really undermining our faith in the criminal justice system. It's an awful system, and as soon as you start looking at it and studying it and thinking about it, I think it becomes self-evident.
We do grassroots work, so we depend on ordinary people to decide that they need to get involved and to change this, and we can change it.
Grassroots organizing might encompass doing letter writing campaigns, meetings with legislators, and empowering citizens across the state. Education would encompass doing presentations to classes in high school and college atmospheres, as well as doing presentations to church youth groups, video showings, panel discussions, as we seek to educate the general public about the death penalty. Public witness in opposition to the death penalty is, of course, when we vigil at executions at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution. And finally, changing public policy is kind of encompassed with grassroots organizing as we, again, empower citizens to affect public policy.
One of the great things about TCASC is we've been a small organization for a long time, but we have very committed people.
I came to this issue because of my faith as a Christian. This is both a faith issue and a public policy issue, and that particularly as Christians, though all people of faith certainly must wrestle with this, but as Christians who follow someone who in fact himself was executed, this is very important, and this must be something that we wrestle with and that we really struggle with.
We are an interfaith organization. Although we are secular, we do work frequently with all different denominations across the state of Tennessee. And I found it a really unique experience to bring together people from all different denominations, conservative, some progressive, and some not religious at all, to the same table working for the same cause.
What does the average person do to help TCASC? We can always use financial support. We operate on a shoestring budget.
People can get on our website, www.tcask.org, and find a whole lot more information about who we are and what we're doing. To get on our email list, we often have actions that we need people to take, making phone calls to the governor, writing legislators, showing up at events that we're having to have a voice and to say, no, this is not what we want. We don't want the state to take a life in our name.
We currently have sustaining chapters in Memphis, Jackson, McKenzie at Bethel University, Nashville, and we have a National Students chapter now, also in Knoxville, and are just about to relaunch our Chattanooga chapter.
Because we really believe that once people get the facts, once people understand all the problems, once people understand the cost in so many ways to our state and to our society, that support for the death penalty will plummet, and that we can be safe, we can protect our families, we can do more to prevent these violent crimes if we wouldn't put all our resources and all our energy into a system that just isn't serving us.
But never, 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 I never wanted war.